to share with you my favorite oatmeal cookie recipe. It is super delicious. This cookie is probably in my top 5 favorite, all-time favorite. It's really great, and what makes it a little bit special is that there is some orange zest in these oatmeal cookies that make them irresistible. Now this recipe comes from a dear friend, Ruth, and I keep it under my heirloom recipes with all the other recipes that I have from my mother, my grandmother, friends' mothers, friends' grandmothers. They're recipes that have been made hundreds and hundreds of times. They're tried and true, and they are delicious. So as I said, this one comes from a dear friend, Ruth, who's made these cookies for me many times, more times than I can remember. She's made them hundreds of times. I'm not sure if this recipe may even come from Ruth's mother. Ruth is now living in a retirement home, and I thought it would be special to make these cookies, her own recipe, and bring them to her. I know it's one of her favorites, and I think she'll get a hoot out of critiquing how well I'm able to follow her recipe. So these cookies are for Ruth, but I'd like to share with you how to make them because I know you're going to love them as much as I do. So let's get started. So here's an overview of our ingredients to make these cookies. We're going to need some white sugar, some brown sugar, some cinnamon, baking powder, vanilla, the zest of an orange, some nutmeg, salt, and egg, all-purpose flour, rolled oats, butter, raisins, and walnuts. Start off by creaming our butter with our sugar. We're going to need 1 1/4 cups of butter. Let me get my spatula. And I've let this butter soften at room temperature. It just makes blending a lot easier. So that's 1 1/4 cups of butter. Then we're going to add 1/2 cup of white sugar. And we're going to start creaming this together. It would help if I plug this in. So we're just going to blend this together, and then we're going to add the brown sugar. So now that I've blended the white sugar, I'm just going to add the brown sugar. And for brown sugar, we need 3/4 cup. Now if you don't have brown sugar, you can add a tablespoon or 2 of blackstrap molasses to white sugar and blend it together to get your brown sugar, and that's how you make brown sugar. So now we're just going to cream this together, so we'll bring this up a notch. Once it's creamed, it actually will be slightly lighter in color. So this is pretty good. Let me just show you what this looks like. So you can see that our butter and our sugar has been very well mixed together, and it is creamy. So now we can go on to the next ingredient and add our egg. Now that we've got our butter creamed, we're going to add 1 egg at room temperature, and we're going to blend that in. We're going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. This is 1 teaspoon. And blend that in. And basically you're blending all your liquids at this time into the sugar and the butter mixture. I'm also going to add at this point 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And we're just going to clean off the sides and push it down to a soft mixture. Blend it in. At this point, I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of grated orange zest, and it's about the zest of a whole orange. You can certainly add more or less if you're not a fan, but the orange really makes these cookies. We are going to add 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and this makes it taste really nice. And 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, and that's basically, where is my nutmeg? Nutmeg? Oh, blind. Some nutmeg, 1/4 teaspoon is about that much. Making sure the mixture is well blended. And then we are going to start adding the flour. So we'll just add that. Whoops, it's a little too fast. Add our flour. And then we are going to add 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Oh, this is baking powder. Pardon. 1 teaspoon of baking soda. We'll add that to the mixture. Now you should be getting a nice thick but yet creamy dough. And the last thing that the second last thing we're going to combine is going to be our rolled oats. And for rolled oats, we've got 3 cups of rolled oats. Add this slowly until the cookie dough picks up all these little oats and incorporates it fully into this batter. And I'm just going to help it along. Now this is a quite stiff, the dough, and we're going to be able to roll it into 1-inch balls, and then we're going to flatten it out. So let's continue to combine this. The dough is quite thick and it's breaking off, as you can see. And I'll just show you a picture of this close up. So you can see that our dough is well combined and it's a fairly dry dough. At this point, we're going to add in our nuts and our raisin, and we're going to be adding a 1/4 cup of nuts and a 1/4 cup of raisins. So I've got walnuts here and some golden raisins, but you can certainly switch out the nuts for cashews or peanuts or pecans. Walnuts work very nicely. So now we can combine. So as I said, this is a fairly thick batter, and we just want to make sure that all the raisins and the nuts are evenly distributed throughout the batter. And we're going to scoop out our batter and create those 1-inch balls. So let me get our cookie sheets. So you're going to need 2 cookie trays lined with some parchment paper, and preheat your oven at 375. So now we're going to create our 1-inch balls, and that's about 1 inch. I mean, you can make them a little bit, if you want to make them larger. These do spread, so basically you want little balls that are about that big. And this is going to give us 48, but we'll see. I don't have a yield in the recipe, or bake them ahead for Christmas. Then you can certainly bake the cookies and freeze them. They freeze very well. And then of course you just let them thaw out at room temperature. 15 cookies per tray. You can just have a little bit of flour on the side. Really just kind of helps the fork not stick. So I just tap it and then press it down. Press it flat, crisscross. So there's 1 tray. As I mentioned, our stove is preheated at 375, and we're going to bake these cookies for, this is why my recipe is all mucked up. We are going to bake them for 8 to 9 minutes if you like them chewy, and 10 to 11 minutes if we like them crispy. Getting a little anxious, the balls are getting bigger as I'm going along, but these are very good. Okay, so we're ready to put 2 trays into the oven at 375, and I'll be right back. So it's 9 minutes, and we are going to turn off our timer, and we're going to pull out our cookies. And here they are. So I had to give 2 more minutes to the cookie tray that was on the bottom shelf because it didn't have quite enough heat to cook it all the way through. Smell heavenly. So these are for the chewy cookies. Very light golden brown. Don't attempt to lift them because they're very, very soft. These cookies. So I've let the cookies cool for about 10 minutes and now they are firm enough to lift, and I'll continue cooling them down on my rack. So here are cookies at 11 minutes, and these are going to be our crispy cookies. And they're looking good. Let's see the bottom ones. I think the bottom ones, the top ones are done. So we're going to take them out. And then we're going to leave the bottom ones in there for another 2 minutes. So now we've got our crunchy cookies cooling, and we've got our chewy cookies that have cooled, and I am dying to try. So the cookies are done. They smell fantastic, and I am ready to bite into one. And before I do, I'm just adding some garnish because I'd like to make a beautiful presentation for this, and I thought I would just create a pomander, which is an orange with a whole bunch of cloves pierced through the skin. And this, the smell of the orange and the cloves definitely is reminiscent of Christmas, so that is how I'm going to decorate my platter for my cookies. And by the way, these pomanders, they will dry, but you'll have this beautiful scent of orange and cloves in your house for months. These are my crunchy cookies. These are my chewy cookies that I baked at 9 minutes. Let's try them out. This is the crispy. It's so delicious. It's really buttery and nutty, and it just has that little hint of orange that makes them extra good. So this is definitely crunchy at 11 minutes. And then the chewy, it's crunchy on the outside, but it's definitely chewy in the middle. I think I'm more of a fan of the super crunchy, but they're both delicious. And I think that this is a great cookie for Christmas time. As far as I'm concerned, the flavors in the cookie are reminiscent of Christmas scents, like the orange and the cloves and the cinnamon. So I think that they should be added to your Christmas cookie baking. And I'd like to thank Ruth again for the recipe. It is my favorite cookie. And all I can say is, hang on, Ruth, the cookies are coming. So if you like this recipe and you enjoyed making these, I hope you share them. Enjoy!